All right, I've offended the thing. So, folks, look, I've been watching the forecast. There's going to be a lot of squirrely weather, and it's pretty much across the country for the next couple of weeks. Well, not a big surprise, right? It's we're getting into the holiday season. Fall will be ending soon, and we'll be in the midst of winter. Uh, so, as much as I road trip both for business as well as for personal reasons, I just thought I'd share a few ideas, some stuff that I do. Um, and I mean, you do what fits in your budget. And hey, KP, hey, Loretta, good morning. You do what fits in your budget and your situation, right? Everyone's different. Uh, Before you make a trip, plan the trip. And I know that sounds kind of stupid, right? Like, well, of course I planned the trip. That's why I got the hotel rooms. A lot of people get hotels, or they say, oh, I'm going to be at grandpa's on this date, and that's the extent of their planning. They have a date and they're like, okay, I'm going to go there. But before you go, there's certain things you need to be aware of, or you need to think of. And this is just my opinion. Basically, having clocked 50,000 miles in my own vehicle for work and family, God, that was a few years ago. That was a really freaking busy year. And that didn't include 8 flights to other cities, plus rental cars when I flew to those other cities for business. So I was on the road a lot. By my best estimate, I probably clocked, not including personal around town groceries and going to the beach and whatnot, business and vacation, mainly business, probably close to 100,000 miles in 1 year. It was absolutely insane. I hit 2 continents during that time. It was just crazy. And you get wore out of that, by the way. But when I say plan your trip, it has to be more than just, oh, hey, I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to grandpa's house or whatever, wherever the fuck you're going. And I'll see you on the 15th. That has to be more than that. So first of all, I would plan trips, if possible. Obviously, that's not always the case. At least 2 weeks in advance. I have to, just the way my schedule is. That doesn't mean you can't do spontaneous last minutes. Ooh, let's go here and see because we do that too. But if you're planning a trip, especially you got kids, dogs, whatever, it's a family, or it's a very long distance, plan how you're going to get there, specifically what route and alternatives. And then I would immediately check the maps now, like go on Apple Maps or Google or Waze and chart it and see if there's any major construction that you need to have in the back of your mind, right? So if I'm going, say, from Texas to visit a friend in, I don't know, Ohio, I'm probably going to go through Oklahoma City and maybe even Tulsa, depending on the route. So plot it. The day you plan it, you make your hotel reservations, whatever, plot it out on a map. Typically, these new maps will show a red with a little triangle saying, hey, there's construction, there's whatever, the bridge is out, chupacabra, and be aware that, oh wow, I may need to make a note outside of nothing, Joe. I'm talking about travel. Going through Oklahoma City. Okay, well, there's construction now, so make a mental note in 2 weeks. I need to plot it again about 2 days before the trip and check the map again and see if that has changed or if it's gotten worse. A lot of people don't do this, right? And what they wind up doing is you go to a different city and you get caught in traffic, and then people go, oh yeah, this has been going on for 6 months. This bridge has been under construction, whatever. Had you taken the 10 minutes to just plot it the day you set up your trip, you'd know it. So that's one, is check your route, understand your route. Hey, what's going on, Joe? And Loretta and KP and anyone I missed, check your route and make sure you check an alternate, right? So if you, again, I'm picking on Oklahoma City, no particular reason. It's actually a nice town. I've been through there a bit. But they used to have a lot of construction on the south side. So if I'm coming up from Houston, I go through Dallas, which I knew would be a shit show, and I hit Oklahoma City. I always knew there was likely I'm going to have an hour and a half delay on the south side of town. So I would plot the map and see, okay, do I want to fly it? You know, and you kind of plan, hey, Gene, check us that new soap, or we'll go to the shower and shave today. There you go. Um, so understanding your route and your options are important, especially they're saying we're going to get very squirrely weather. We have an El Nino, which means it's going to be very wet and you're going to have a lot of moisture, a lot of snow or ice, sleet, possibly more than we've seen in the last few years. Now, if you've lived in your area and you're prone to getting ice and snow, you're up in Idaho or Montana, it's like, yeah, this is all the time, not a big deal. But if you've never been there and you're driving through Idaho and Montana and you've never been through that area, it's good to understand, hey, coffee, it's good to understand, you know, how that weather will affect your trip. So that's, again, plan the route and understand the route and what the weather patterns could do. I know, for instance, in West Texas, if we get a lot of rain, which as you can see we've been getting, the ground doesn't handle the rain very well. It's not like Houston that sucks up water and it's a bayou. This is all sandy crap, and when it gets saturated, it immediately starts to flood. It's almost like Vegas out here with the flooding. What are you doing, dude? You are like completely on the wrong side of the road. And that just reminded me to get that dash cam. So, trip plot. Two, I always try to plan out, you know, I have to go across 4 states later this winter to visit some family. I always plot out my stopovers. So some people will drive 15 hours straight. I've found that falling asleep behind the wheel is a bad idea, right? You pass out. So I always plot and choose a destination I think makes sense, and I'm going to say I'm going to reserve a hotel there now, right? And that way I can go. I'm not in a screaming rush, and I've got a place to rest. But also, even if you don't have a stopover city already chosen, know where the hotels are, where places you can stop are. So, you know, like if I drive from New York City to upstate when I was in college, I knew I get caught in a blizzard. Even with my 4x4, I could get screwed. But I knew there were certain towns that had 24-hour McDonald's. So if it got really bad, I just hung out at McDonald's. And, you know, I got a coffee and a Mc whatever, and I just sat there and just stop for a piss. Yeah, that's a good way. You force yourself to stop, Joe. But yeah, hey, coffee. Have that stopover, even if it's not an official stopover, like, okay, family, we're stopping here. At least you can say to yourself, if the weather gets bad, I can stop. You know, say between Dallas and Houston, because I used to travel that a lot. I'm going to stop in Huntsville if the weather gets really bad. If not, I can stop in, if I have to divert, I could stop in Waco. Knowing where, yeah, it is a Mick whatever. I can't remember what the hell I'd eat. You know, it was just crappy ass burgers. But it was a building, hey, Nunya, where I could hang out and make a decision. Do I want to keep going, or do I want to sleep in my truck for the night in the parking lot? I also knew where all the 24-hour truck stops were. So if I needed to pick up gas, I needed to sleep for an hour or two and get coherent, get some coffee, whatever. I had a place, I had a destination to go to. And having those possible stop points, even if you're not planning to stop, having those possible stopovers done in advance is important. About 3-4 days before your trip, get your oil changed, or change your oil yourself if you do that. I can't do it in my HOA, but if you have a place to do it, great. If not, get it done. Check your tires, check your windshield, check your wipers. Do the basic car shit. Not the day of the trip, right? Because you don't want to plan the trip and you're like, oh shit, my wipers suck, and now you have to stop at AutoZone, right? Get that done beforehand. So when you're packing for your trip, you're focused on your trip and your destination. And at least 24 hours before, fill up your tank. And if you're at it, if you have a car you're leaving in the garage, fill that one up too, just in case. You never know. Print out copies of your route, even if you're using a cell phone. Have a hard copy, or do what I do. Shit, I got hard copy maps in my car. You can get the laminated ones, One of the truckers I knew turned me on to the laminated. They cost a couple of bucks more, but I'll tell you right now, they're worth their weight, right? If you want free maps as you cross state lines, go to the welcome centers will typically give you a free map. So I have maps of Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, all the places I go. If I'm driving, I stop at the first visitor center and I can almost always get a free map. Even if I pay a buck, who cares? I now have a paper copy of the new state I'm visiting. So, and then you keep them at home. Hey, veteran, what's going on? Wolfang, hey. Make sure you bring the paper maps or print them out if you can't find the actual physical copy. You get the laminated one, but they do cost you a couple of bucks more. So if you're trying to do it cheap, just, print it out. Joe, yeah, and the old maps, sometimes they build over something. Like they've built subdivisions in South Louisiana that I know for a fact are on cane fields, which will flood. And I'm like, if they get a big hurricane through like Lafayette, it's going to flood Youngsville because they put houses where God meant for water to go, right? When I lived in the area, I knew I lived on a hill because that's where the pine trees were, right? And I knew that didn't flood often because pine trees wouldn't grow where it flooded repeatedly. So, being familiar with your route, what will flood, construction, make sure your vehicle's ready. The day before the trip is when I pack, unless it's a last minute thing. Yes, dry erase markers for the laminated map. That's a brilliant point. Thank you, Dan. And I have done that. I actually use the old grease pencils. You remember those? Or the ugly ass. It was like a crayon, but pencil. They called it grease pencil, wax pencil. I can't remember. It looked like a pencil crayon. I don't remember what the hell that's called. GPS, a screenshot of the whole way. Yeah, do that, China graph. But make sure you have a hard copy. Make sure you got a first aid kit. This is 101 stuff, right? First aid kit. I keep a tourniquet and an Israeli bandage right here. That was one of my corpsmen. Well, it wasn't my corpsman. Our medic was screwing off, and we got to borrow a corpsman from the Navy side. And he said, if you carry concealed or if you don't have a tourniquet or an Israeli in your side of your truck, get one. And see, in Jersey's a pain because if you get caught in Newark's streets are not north, south, east, west. They're a little bit canted, and it absolutely screws me up. Whereas Dallas and Houston are kind of like concentric bullseye rings, right? So I know if I get on one of the loops, if I stay there long enough, I'm going to come all the way around the city. Jersey's not like that. It like ends and it breaks off. New York City can be the same way, and you can get totally lost. Before you leave, have someone else know what you're doing, right? Tell them, hey, you know what? I'm going to be going this route to this city, stopping here for the night and going on. For my business trips, my boss would know, but I'd also tell, obviously, my wife, my boss, and I would tell the coworkers on the other side, hey, I should be there Sunday. I'll text you when I arrive. If you don't hear from me by Monday morning, some shit went down, right? Again, having those options. Now, for me, the company has facilities all over the U.S. So if I'm passing Oklahoma City to go to, say, Tulsa, I know we have a facility in Oklahoma City. I can say, oh, okay, if it gets really bad, I'm going to bring my corporate ID card and I can badge into all of the damn facilities and I'll just camp out at the district. And yes, reciprocity, if you're going to go across state lines, you'll likely need a physical card. Even if your state's constitutional carry, another state may not recognize it unless you have the actual license. So make sure you have that. And you may have to change what you're carrying. For instance, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, basically the southern states, not an issue. For a minute, I was worried going through New Mexico might be a problem because New Mexico was going to ban carry. That got shot down because it was unconstitutional even by their state. But in certain jurisdictions, I cannot carry over 7 rounds, so I may either have to switch my mags or I'm going to have to choose a different carry pistol and go maybe from an HK to the XDS with the little itty bitty mags to be in compliance. Now, whether you agree or disagree with their laws, which I don't agree with, I think it's stupid. But if that's the rule, you don't want to add a problem to your trip. You get pulled over, and now you're in violation, and now you have a whole new issue. What I do in my carry bag, or in my personal bag, I will also put an emergency radio. I will put an extra first aid kit in my duffel bag. The emergency radio, I'll bring an extra flashlight because I have one in my computer bag. I usually have one in my pocket, a little itty bitty one. I throw a third one in the bag, and of course I have them in my truck. And an extra pair of boots should always be in your car, with a change of socks. In the event something happens and you're in business shoes or high heels, I would hate to walk through floodwaters in high heels, or even business shoes for men. They suck in that kind of environment. They're slippery, they have no traction. I'd rather put on a pair of old hikers, even if they look janky, because I'm infinitely better off. And lastly, while you're on your trip, make sure to take, like Joe had pointed out, a pee stop, but make sure you take a break every couple of hours, stretch out, and then check your route. You're probably going to be navigating with Waze or Apple Maps anyway. Hey, take care, Wolf. Hey, Daryl. Probably navigating with Apple Maps or some shit anyway, so it should tell you, hey, Pilgrim, what's going on ahead of you. But I would take a minute while you stop to get a coffee or whatever to look at that map and scroll to the other side of your trip, right? Because it'll show you where you are now and like a little piece of what's around you. Look through the whole map and see if there's been something new, construction, an accident that makes you change or delays you. And then if you're delayed, let the people waiting for you know that you're going to be delayed. Okay? And lastly, if you're traveling with kids can be a pain in the ass. If you're a parent, you know this. Magnetic board games, those little ones, remember we all grew up with magnetic games, coloring books, or that little DVD player if it's not built into your truck. If you have a bougie truck, they have them built in. But you can get this stupid DVD player for like $50 now. They're cheap, and strap it to the back of the chair, and the kids can watch, Shrek or some shit while you're driving, so they're not being a pain in the ass. I also use, I don't have one in front, a buckle for my dogs, right? Because I'll get a corgi in the driver's seat if I'm not careful. They will jump, which surprised the shit out of me when I first got them. I was like, holy shit, you guys can fly. And I shorten it so that they can be on the back seat, but I don't get a corgi in my face while I'm driving, right? Because you don't want to have a dog hit you on the back of the head and now you have a car wreck because of the stupid idiot in the back. And there was something else I wanted to bring up with you guys. When you get to your destination, obviously if you're with family, it's different. If you're going to a hotel, and I have to do a whole separate video on this. I'll be in a hotel here in a couple of days, so I'll be able to do that. You get to the hotel. I always drive around the entire hotel before I park, just to see what the hell's going on. I also like to see what's available in the area, stores, restaurants, stuff like that. Yeah, lot lizards, for those of you who don't know, are people of the night, if you want to say it nicely. A northern state where it's cold, treat your diesel fuel. Oh, that's a great suggestion, Farmer. Yes. And also, if you're going from a southern state to a northern state and you're getting your oil changed, tell the guys that, so they give you the correct oil for that environment. And also, down in Texas, South Texas, it hardly ever freezes. Your windshield wiper fluid you can dilute with water. Going further north where it freezes, you don't want to do that because it'll freeze in the little tank. So little things like that, you may want to call someone who lives in the area and ask them, hey, how should I be set up? Also, when you do make those rest stops, check your weather and see what's ahead of you. All right, a lot of people don't do that. I actually drove into a tornado, not physically me, but the wind got so bad I couldn't control the SUV. My wife and I pulled over. We went into a pilot truck stop, and you could hear the outside. And when we came out, we continued our trip when the storm passed, and all the road signs had been twisted about 2 miles up the road. Had I stayed on the road in the dark, I would have probably driven into a freaking tornado. It wasn't a big one. It was like a F1, but still, it hits your truck, you're going off the road, right? They're going to find you in the cornfield. So if the weather gets bad, knowing where the stops are is a big deal. I'd rather be in a building and get hit by a tornado than in my SUV. So I thank you, Pilgrim. So make sure you know your stops. And if you're freaking falling asleep, find the rest stop, pull over, do push-ups, walk around, get a coffee, whatever. I knew people who fell asleep while they were driving, and they're not here anymore. And a lot of people are like, well, if I die. Yeah, that's great. But your wife, your kids, people who count on you, or your husbands, whatever, they're the ones who are going to suffer, because you'll be gone, right? You're on the other side, but they're not. So, be mindful of that. You start falling asleep. We've had all sorts of fatalities in western and northern Texas with the oil field and the wind farms and the solar and all this energy shit going on, pipelines, because trucker speed. People pass out. They fall asleep because they overwork, and you start zoning out. Just pull over or go to a rest stop, go to the truck stop, crack your windows and pass out in your car. Whatever, don't keep driving, because not only will you hurt yourself, you're probably going to take someone with you. And the dude trying to get home to go see his kids doesn't deserve to die because the first person was a dumbass and fell asleep instead of pulling over. So be mindful of that. Anyway, folks, this is some of my road trip tips. And again, like I said, from a guy who was averaging 50,000 miles a year for several years in his own car for business, not including my vacations, and the flights and all the other crap I did. It was a lot. So you guys, be good, be safe. I hope these tips help you. And remember, do your homework before you go out the door. It'll make your life so much less painful if you plan things out correctly. All right, you guys, be careful out there. We'll see you, and have a good week. I'm sure I'll see you in another video later on.